everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tyanna Bui and I've been working in sustainability pretty much my whole career. I realize it's been at least 3 years since I last posted and shared more about my career journey, so I thought it's time for an update. So for today, I really wanted to update more about how my early career to mid-career has been going, the promotional process that I've been trying to go through, the job hunting journey, and then ultimately thinking about pivoting out of the industry. If you do like these career-focused videos, then please give it a thumbs up so I know I can do more. And if you want to see more of me, then please hit the subscribe button. So starting off with my early to mid-career. Where we left off, I think I mentioned how I got a new role at a global company as an assistant manager, and there I was really working in the business segment of consumer products. What was also interesting was that I was sitting under the communications teams as well, so not only was I working on consumer products initiatives, but I was also working on the communications front as well. During my first year, I definitely did have more assistant manager responsibilities. Some of that did include working broadly across all the different projects, and this is because I had my manager and there was supposed to be someone else on the team who left when I started. So instead of a 3-person team, we're only a 2-person team. So kind of just really working cross-functionally across all the different projects that we had. I was also starting to take notes and do more of the administrative work with the different working groups that we're managing. I was also researching and creating a lot of pitch decks. I think that first year, definitely a lot of research and data crunching and creating a lot of different presentations to pitch to our executives to see if we wanted to work on these initiatives. Before, the skill sets that I did come in with where I had a lot of strengths, like designing and doing data and research, that's kind of where I took more of the lead. Sometimes I created surveys, and then from those surveys I would analyze it, and then similarly to what I was saying before, I would create pitch decks for that. Also was creating a lot of educational resources and trainings and took more of the lead on that. So some of the outcomes really did focus on learning the business. Because it's such a large global organization, you're not going to learn that stuff in a week. It's going to take you, I would say, at least a full year to understand all the nuances of the business. And then I was also assisting and doing a lot of administrative tasks for more of the initiatives that I was newer to. And then where I did have a lot of strengths and experience in already, that's where I was kind of taking the lead on those. After the first year of being at the company, my role title actually changed to assistant manager to senior specialist, and that didn't really mean anything at all. It was just mainly because the business segment kind of got rid of the role assistant manager, so all people who were called assistant managers were changed to a senior specialist. And in this second year, there was a lot of more responsibilities that I had to take care of, and that was mainly because my manager really did trust the work that I was doing. But because after the first year we were doing a lot of pitch presentations, a lot of that did get signed off, so then we needed people to kind of take lead on those initiatives. Another thing that kind of changed was that my work kind of got a little more categorized, and that's because we were able to hire someone else on my team. So now we were a team of 3, and then also we were able to hire a lot more sustainability roles in consumer products, vertical business. And so what I ended up doing a lot more was working on the licensing side and leading those initiatives. In addition to the licensing business, other things I really did focus on was building new processes within the company, leading our certifications and claims strategy, and then also continuing on the educational train and building other resources. To get a little more into detail as to what I was doing for each of those, we had 2 different environmental goals that really did impact the consumer products business. One of them was for emissions, and the other one was to make sure we're using better materials in our products. So for the licensing business, I was leading the charge for both of those initiatives. One of them was kind of setting up a global program and launching that and managing it on a biannual basis. And then another thing was to kind of just understand the lay of the land for the materials goals, so building surveys and assessing that information for future strategy. For process development, one of the things I was really proud of that I was able to accomplish was building a data governance framework, and I won't really get into the weeds of that, but that was a really great experience because I hired a consultant. This project kind of came out of my own brain, so it was an initiative that I started, and I was able to work alongside all the different teams to help set it up. And from what I know, the framework's working really well and has set up a lot of other processes within the company as well. For certifications and claims, I basically built it from gathering data from our vendors and then using that data to create a strategy presentation. And then in that strategy, there were different project phases that I was leading. And then lastly, for the research development, there's just a lot of different toolkits that we're creating to educate our vendors and our licensees and our teams. And then one of the things that I also initiated was creating a sustainability internal page for CAST. And so really from the early career to the mid-career, if I can really differentiate it, the early career is more like, you're still kind of learning the lay of the land, building those really important skills in order to succeed. But then when you start entering your mid-career, that's when you're kind of building on that foundational knowledge and trying to think through, okay, what can I really do better, and taking more initiative with less guidance. With the role that I have, to be honest, I didn't really know what kind of skills I was going to develop. I just thought it was a really cool opportunity. But what I ended up really learning was how to really project manage through a really complex, large organization. I also learned how to strategize, which is something that I didn't learn in school because my education was very research and data intensive. So that was really cool, being able to think through using the information that you have, how can you build a strategy, but then how can you make sure that the strategy is efficient and impactful to help not just your team, but other teams. I don't know, I just think that concept's really cool. And then another thing that I was really building on was obviously the research and data skills, but ultimately how to communicate within an organization with the sustainability jargon, but then also how can you make an impact trying to communicate that more externally as well, and also to business partners. But I just want to mention with this experience I'm sharing, that's kind of based on my organizational structure. If you're in a different organization, your roles and responsibilities and how that progresses, it would totally just be different. And also how your manager is, like what actually needs to be worked on. So I think there's a lot of different factors to understand how you kind of grow in your role. So now to the juicy part, and I don't know if it's juicy, but it was just honestly one of the most stressful times in my life, fighting for a promotion. And I'm saying fighting because I really did feel like I was putting up a fight, not physically, but just trying to advocate for myself. If you guys can tell from what I was sharing, during my second year, that's where I really had a lot of great accomplishments. That prompted me to talk to my manager about a promotion. I remember I used to train from Anaheim to LA during that time, and the train ride is like an hour and a half. So I remember I was just on my computer and I was like, I need to make a pitch deck. I was making so many pitch decks in my first year. I'm a total pro at it. I need to make one for myself. During this time, it was July 2023. And I remember I sat down with my manager, my pits are sweating because I get my pits sweat even when I make these videos. But when I get nervous or there's a little more pressure or stress that I'm dealing with, then I get a little sweaty. Anyway, in my conversation with him, I presented it to him. He totally agreed. He's like, yeah, you're right. You should, get promoted. So let me talk to my manager. So months roll by and it's November 2023. And during this time, I was notifying him maybe every other month to see if there's any update. And during this time, his manager, our director, he was on a temporary assignment and we got assigned a different director in the meantime. And then our VP, who was above our director, went to a different position, and so that seat was open. And because of that, my boss was saying like, hey, maybe we should wait to submit your paperwork and really push on this until after the original director comes back into his place. And so in my head, I was like, okay, if that's what you need to do, then let's wait. So we wait. And then now it's April, okay? April of next year, 2024. The original director is back on his seat, and then the company hires a VP. So then the chain of commands are all filled in. So I bring it up to my manager again, and he was like, yeah, let's go ahead and push for the promotion. And I'm very thankful that he did do it, but he didn't really submit the paperwork until around the November time. So that's April, May, June, July, August, September, October, like 7 months later. And then also during that time, he was actually going to leave for a different role within the organization. So after my manager left, I was now under my director. And in January time, he was just saying, yep, the budget's frozen right now. Let's just wait until the next quarter in April to see if anything happens. But we really hope it can happen. So April 2025 rolls by. There's a lot of different HR things that did get approved for my director, but everything got approved besides my promotion, okay? So I'm feeling a little disappointed, and I don't know, I just didn't have any more push in me because I was pushing so long already. But then he notifies me right before my vacation in June of 2025 that, oh, I'm gonna bring it up to the VP again to see if we can actually get this going. I don't know. By that point, I'm pretty burnt out and trying to fight this battle. And I'm not saying that my director didn't try. I'm sure he did. Probably was HR's fault. I can't really say. But in my head, I'm kind of wondering, was there anything else that could have been done, right? Could my boss have not waited a year and a half to submit my paperwork? Or could my director have pushed a little more to HR as he was getting everything else approved under his bucket? And I know maybe you thought this was a battle that I would have won, but unfortunately I didn't. And after 2 years, I honestly got so tired of trying. But I did learn a lot of things about myself. I learned that it's really important to advocate for yourself no matter what. You're gonna be your own advocate in your career. No one else is gonna push for these things. I feel like if I didn't push as much as I did, then I don't even think it would have gone as far as it did. I also learned that in a large organization, where you sit really does matter in your career growth, because there could be departments where, sustainability is highly related. And so there may be more budget for that. Unfortunately, for my case, the team that I was on wasn't actually an environmental team. I also learned that promotion doesn't always happen by merit. And I say that because I was told many times by my previous manager that if he could, he would promote me. I'm definitely doing this level of work. You shouldn't doubt yourself. You are doing it. And then I was told by other teams, senior managers and directors that, why aren't I getting promoted? I totally deserve it with all the different work that I was doing across the organization and how integrated I was. But unfortunately, yes, it's not all by merit. And I know people might be saying, oh, it's a social politics game. And believe me, I was playing it. People did like me. I'm a likable worker, so to say. I also learned that if your managers really did care, they would fight for you. And I'm not saying that my managers didn't care. I'm sure that they did fight for me, but there are other case scenarios from other teams where, they were able to get promoted within 2 months, or someone ended up working remotely when the company doesn't really allow remote workers too much, only on certain cases. And their leadership was able to push that, oh, this person is so important, we have to let her work remote. And if we needed to find someone else, it would be too hard to replace her. So there are wills, there are ways. Because it was 2 years, it was kind of do I want to keep waiting for something that might happen? Or do I want to actually think about if there could be something better out there for me? And this is something that I ask you guys, if you guys feel like you're stuck in your current position, is there something else that you could be doing? And you shouldn't feel bad if the answer is yes. So off to the job hunt. I gained so much weight because I was so stressed. Really what happened in my experience, when I realized I wasn't gonna get promoted anytime soon, I was just okay, maybe I need to look for other opportunities. I'm very thankful that I was able to get a few interviews here and there. I really did feel like it was because of, one, my master's degree, but then also the current company that I was with. And I gotta tell you, I graduated during the pandemic, and I feel like this experience is a lot more worse than interviewing through the pandemic. So there are experiences where I went through 6 interviews, and at the end of that interview, they told me, oh, we actually don't need to hire a manager role anymore. We need a senior manager. So bye. Oh my, I was so mad because I drove all the way to their office to do that, and it was about a 2-hour drive from where I was. This other company, I did 8 interviews, and I went all the way up to the chief of sustainability. And then at the end of that, a new CEO was hired, and they didn't know if they needed my role anymore. So that was really frustrating too. And then there are other times where recruiters just didn't show up for the interview, and that's so rude. And then I've also told a different time by the hiring manager that she really loved me. We had a really great conversation, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have you talk to my admin so we can have you talk to the panelist. So I was waiting for that, and when I followed up, they just sent me a denial. So it's why are people lying? I interviewed for a company, and they had 10 rounds. There's 10 rounds, and I talked to 11 people. It was really frustrating. And during that time is in a span of 5 months, I also had to go on campus to interview, and I can say that I was a finalist, which is great, but it's kind of oh my God, 10 rounds, 11 people, just to be told no, that's really stressful. Because I wasn't securing anything, I started looking more laterally, and I was doing that because I felt like even if I can move laterally, at least, after meeting the team, and if I did get hired, then there might be a greater chance that I can move up the ladder a little bit more at this next company versus the one that I was currently at, because it was 2 years and it was still pending, and I don't even know if the answer would have been yes. One of the things I did realize was that since I was interviewing for corporate sustainability roles, a lot of the time, like what I mentioned in my previous videos, a lot of corporate sustainability roles really start with a team that's focused on the reporting frameworks and the metrics, and also adhering to certain regulations coming down the pipeline. The work that I currently do is related to it, but it doesn't specifically work on it. When I was going through my interviews, though they really did like me, it was hard to fully relate my experiences to what they're looking for, because I've only worked in tangent with what was coming down the pipeline. And then also, to make things worse, because of the administration that did come in, people in our industry have actually gotten laid off. And so it only made the process of finding a job a lot more difficult, because if people in the industry are getting laid off, and then also companies were only hiring sustainability roles if they really needed it, then that just accounts for a really competitive market. There came a time when I was applying for promotional roles, I couldn't even get an interview anymore because it was so saturated, and even for the lateral roles, just because they're so limited these days. Because I wasn't getting anything, I decided to think about how to best pivot, and I was thinking about some of my previous videos and really not just focusing on what you want, but maybe kind of doing a skim to understand where I'm at and where I can be more marketable in that. So that leads me to what I ended up doing next, which was thinking about pivoting out of corporate sustainability just because of the scarcity of jobs and how the market's been and everything. And if you've seen my other video about the realities of working in this industry, that was also another thing that I was considering also. Did I still want to be in that type of environment, or is there something else that I can experience? So what I did in going back to, step one is like, where are my skill sets? And a lot of the skill sets that I was building really did focus on project management and communications. I was able to get more interviews focusing on those more functional roles. I'm very, 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 very thankful to have gotten this new role as a digital marketing manager for an environmental services firm. This role is interesting because this will have me focus a little bit more on the content development side, but also using strategy and data as a tool to help, build better content. And this is an area that I've always thought about maybe pursuing a career in. I know I mentioned in my previous career journey video that I started off doing a lot of marketing and comms for nonprofits and everything, but I feel like this experience is going to be a little bit different because it's not for a nonprofit, it's for a service, for companies to leverage and improve their environmental performance and processes and strategies. And so I think what's also interesting about this is, as I was looking at the type of tasks and projects that I work on in my previous role, I noticed that when I do make content, it is a lot less stressful for me than, trying to spearhead a global program where there's 20 plus different stakeholders to try to take account of to do stuff for you. Like that, it was all fun, like meeting all these people, but it did stress me out, especially if I was trying to hit a deadline. What was really interesting about this opportunity too is that it is going to be focusing, making the content for digital, but then also for the events and having opportunities to go to all these different industry events with all these different leaders, from government to corporate to startups. And I feel like that's really exciting, and it's something that my previous role I didn't really have exposure to that too much. Beyond that, it really does just focus on the environmental storytelling part, and I feel like this channel is also a part of that, right? Trying to share more about the sustainability career journey through my lens, trying to leverage the skills I'm building here, the skills I'm building there, so I can make both of the things that I really care about as great as possible. One thing I'll note is that when I was going through this process, this role is kind of a pay cut, to be honest, the newer one. But the thing is, this is also a remote role. In this newer situation that I'll be in, I'm also going to be living with my partner for the first time, and we're going to be splitting expenses and everything. And so When I was doing my little finance sheet, I actually realized even though I'm gonna be taking a bit of a pay cut, I'm actually gonna take more money home with me because my rent right now, paying by myself, even though I make 6 figures and everything, rent is so expensive, okay? Especially if you live in LA. And another thing about this being remote too is that I'll have a lot more time for you guys and for this channel. A lot of the reason why I didn't really pull out too much content before was because I was working in the office all the time, and by the time I got home I was so drained. In pivoting out of corporate sustainability, I really just learned how it's okay to get out of your comfort zone. Like, just because you decided to do one pathway doesn't mean that it has to be your pathway forever. And there's a lot of different VPs that I talked to in the organization that I was in, and also the senior managers when I was, saying my goodbyes. They're saying it's definitely okay to try to venture around to see what it is that you actually want to be doing. And it's also a lot better for you as a professional to get that type of experience. It makes you more versatile as a worker and not understanding the mindset of one way, but also understanding the mindset of different ways and how other teams think. But yeah, I'm really excited to share this next part of my journey with you guys, being more in the digital marketing space for sustainability. If I do go to events, I really want to share more of those learnings and findings with you guys. I hope you'll join me on this journey. I know it's not going to be solely focused on corporate sustainability anymore, but it's kind of a tangent of that, right? I hope you guys learned something today, and I know right now the journey and the career for this pathway can be pretty difficult, but if there's a will, again, there's a way. You just have to kind of think outside the box sometimes and make sure that you're continuing to foster self-growth and self-health and self-care, and know that whatever is going to come along your way will be the best opportunity, the best thing that could come for you. So yeah, maybe in 3 or 5 years, I'll come back and see where my career is taken off. It's been great seeing you guys again. I hope you guys have a great one. Until next time.